Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year from the Nigerian Abroad podcast. This is our very first episode of the year. I think with a new year, we often start to think about our goals and our aspirations and what we want to do. Good and fine. First things first, a few housekeeping rules. If you're new here, this is the Nigerian Abroad podcast. This is a podcast where immigrants alike come in to listen, and there's a lot of self-discovery, there's a lot of lessons about thriving, there's also just a bit of feel good and just relatability and cultural experiences. Our key motto here is we are thriving as immigrants abroad. Immigrants abroad. Immigrants. Immigrants. Because you're already abroad if you're an immigrant, so ignore that. So yeah, please comment, share, but make sure you are subscribed and you have hit the notification bell. So whatever video we post on, you get notified and you just are in the loop of everything. Yes. So, new year, new me, right? That's what everyone says. And our New Year's resolutions always come pouring in the first week, second week of January. In fact, from the end of December, actually from November, there were a lot of people who were on about don't go into the new year doing this or do this, make sure you're doing this if you want to be this, if you want to be this, if you want to be that. And that's all good and fine. We all have so many things we want to achieve. But I was thinking about this very deeply for the podcast and for myself generally as an immigrant. Which by the way is something that I always like to say, I think I've gotten to a point where as much as being an immigrant defines me, I don't want that to be my defining point. So everything you do in a foreign country kind of is determined by your immigration status. We are aware of that. But I don't want that to be a limiting factor. I can always work my way through the cracks or whatever is given to me. I can multiply and I will multiply it. So I'm just at that point where I'm exhausted, tired of just being well, I'm an immigrant, boohoo to me. No, no, no. Anyway, with that in mind, I decided that I am just going to have a few things that I am not bringing into 2026. I want to focus on filtering a lot of things, a lot of bad habits, a lot of toxicity. Oh my gosh, I said that in one go. That I have, especially as an immigrant, and I think quite a few of us would agree with me that this is something that we have. So I have a list of what is not coming with me into 2026. I'm leaving it all into 2025 and it's going to stay there buried forever. The first thing I want to say that I'm leaving in 2025 is comparison as motivation. And this is common knowledge. We know it in theory, but just don't compare yourself to other people. We say it, we have it memorized. Don't compare, don't compare, don't compare. Yes, 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 yes. We are fully aware of that. But how many of us actually put that into practice? Let me paint a picture via the immigrant's lens. Let's say you move to a new country in the year 2020 and it's the year 2025 and you've barely kind of in quotes made it alive. You've barely survived. You've been doing back-to-back shifts, blah, 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 all that. And then someone maybe moved in 2023 and they seem to be thriving. They seem to know what works for them and they're doing all that. And you are here and this is the year 2025 or 2026 and you're just but this person came a year after me. We're very fond of doing that, by the way. We're very fond of saying this is this year that this person came in. They're already achieving so many feats and we become so self-critical that it starts to affect us mentally and emotionally. That's something that I personally would like to leave in 2025. Everybody has their own path. Everyone has their own lane. I think we forget that when it comes to immigrants, some people arrive into a new country with financial support. Some people arrive into a new country with families scattered around the country to break their fall, to cushion anything that happens. So they don't necessarily feel the brunt of anything anyone else feels. Not saying it's not going to be tough for them. Granted, immigration is hard for everybody and anyone. There's always a change. But some people have a leg up. Let's not lie to ourselves. Some people arrive with clarity, which I even think is the best of all of it, and they are so focused and all of that. And then others are just like vibing through life. Whichever you are, I feel like if you have gotten to this point where you're like awake, I think that is enough for you to step up and be like, okay, that had happened. I'm not going to let it happen again. Now I have the clarity. Now my eyes are open. Now I'm fully aware, and I'm not going to let it happen. I'm going to give an example, and I'm going to base it off of this podcast. It's podcast related. And I remember when I started this solo podcast journey, I threw myself deep into the planning process, and I was like, I want this and this and this and this and this. And a lot of where I was drawing inspiration from were from other podcasts. Fair enough. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong in getting inspiration from other podcasts, from people who have gone ahead. But I remember it was so unhealthy. I started to compare. It stopped being inspiration and started to become comparison. There were two kinds of podcasts I was comparing myself to. I was comparing this podcast to. So the first kind was podcasts that have invested years into building. And I remember one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, they had just celebrated, I think, 7 years last year. And they went on this whole tour and they had like live shows and all of that. And then when they came back, they were talking about it. And one of them was saying, oh, somebody came up to her and said, oh, it's like this podcast thing, I'm going to be doing it too. But then she replied and she was like, all these things you're seeing right now, don't think of it as, oh, you just put it now and then you get the result. This is over 7 years of hard work. This is years and years of effort, years of no, and we finally got the yes. So don't just think that this is something that just happens overnight. When I listened to that episode, I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is what I've been doing to myself. And I've been thinking, oh, but they did this. Why didn't it work out for me the same way it worked out for them? They've built communities. They have a following. They have a fan base, a very loyal community. I'm one of the loyal communities as well, loyal people in the community. And it's something I had to take a step back from and be like, okay, let me draw the line between inspiration and comparison, because girl, you're not doing yourself a favor. You will drive yourself mad. So as immigrants, like, you cannot compare yourself to somebody whose parents and families have funded their entire lifestyle in the UK to you who are probably supporting your family back home and then saying, but this person has we're not doing that. Just keep quiet. We're not doing that. This is the point where you are like, okay, that comparison spirit, that spirit of comparison, I am dropping it in 2025. 2026, I can be inspired, fine. But the moment where it starts to get unhealthy, I am not doing it. I'm not. Then the second set of podcasters I started comparing myself to were people who, yes, started after me, but I was just seeing exponential growth. And I was like, but I started before them. What's happening? Like, what's going on? I didn't think about the fact that these people were probably influencers who had a network backing them up. So they had a whole production team. They had like people who would like, okay, direct them. All they'd have to do is come to the studio and record, which is still not even an easy job to do anyway. But then I started to think about the fact that, oh my God, IJ, you reach out to the guest, you plan your episode, you will come here, you will record, then you collect the episode, you will edit it, then you cut it out, get social media clips. And I was like, why are you doing this to yourself? 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 So I am absolutely leaving comparison. I'm not using comparison as my motivation this year. Like, Nothing like in the spirit of healthy competition. I'm not competing with anybody. I'm not even competing with my past self because I feel like even saying, oh, the only person you can compete with is yourself, good, good, good. But the person I am right now has a leg up already. I cannot compete with myself 5 years ago. So we're not doing that. Basically, we're not. Anyway, that's that bit. Um, the next thing I would be leaving in 2025 and not bringing into 2026 is performing resilience. And what do I mean by that? I think that as a Nigerian, I can't speak for other like nationalities, but there is this glorification of suffering and enduring pain so much so it proves how valuable and how strong you are. It shows up in how many shifts you take. It shows up in how much you're willing to stretch yourself too much because you're like, I'm this person. I have to show that I'm strong. I have to show that I'm powerful. I have to show that I'm able to endure to the end. I don't know when the end is, but people just keep saying that. And I am tired. Like, I think it's okay to be like, I am too weak for this. If there are people that think that you're too weak for them, then they're not your people. So this year, I'm not taking into this whole, I am pushing beyond what I can do. If something is not working out, I'm leaving it. Of course, there are exceptions when you feel it in your heart and you're like, this thing, I know I'm going to push. There's a time when you're pushing through, but there's a time you would feel it in your spirit when something definitely is not working and it's not for you and you're just going to stay there. Case in point, when I had come in, that I was trying to be a ballerina. There were so many things against me getting to that point, like everything against all odds. In fact, the tragedy in quote happened a year and a half into being in the UK, and it took me over 2 years to come to the realization that okay, this is not working. You need to try something else. And I am not about that life anymore. I think I'm just exhausted. I am just at that point where I'm not going to push myself beyond what I'm able to do. And I know I'm able to do a lot. So if I've gotten to that point where I'm like, I'm trying, no, 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 no. I'm not really, really doing that. Like, I think we as immigrants are good at suffering silently and being so quiet because we're like, I can take it. I have to show them that I can take it. Can you though? Should you take it? Like, it's one of those things that we have to think about. And we're like, no, I'm not going to get into that suffering mentality. Like, how do we redefine resilience? Is it like taking until we can take no more? Struggling in silence is not something that makes you stronger. I think that's another thing. Apart from like performing resilience, we have this whole thing where we're like, nobody should know that I'm suffering. I'm going to keep quiet about it. I mean, I think we're all, let me not assume, but a good number of people are quite aware that communities make everything better, especially as an immigrant when you're all alone here and it would take a while to build that community. But when you do have to hold on to them because it takes a lot to rebuild a support system that you had, for lack of a better word, lost when you were back home. So dropping this whole suffering in silence, suffering so much that you're like, I need to prove that I'm worth something. I'm not doing that this year. Another thing that I will not be bringing into 2026 is over explaining myself, and I'm going to give it in a couple of contexts. The first one is work. This is still going to be in a coming episode, but I'm just going to touch a little bit on it. When I need to take time off, which I am entitled to, or a sick leave, I get very nervous, like sick to my stomach to ask for that leave. And I find myself explaining and explaining. I remember there was a day that someone had sent an email saying she was going to be off, and she was just like, good morning all, I'm going to be off. I've done this, bam, and she sent the email. I looked at email, I'm like, Ijeme Yahweh. Why are you not writing email like this? Me, I would have thought and thought and thought and thought about what to say and how to make sure it doesn't look as if I'm skipping work and all of that. And I'm like, I would explain, I'm like, it's because that time I went to A&E and the doctor said, come back, this is, I would have exposed my life and family secrets. All in the name of over explaining, because there's a sense of me not valuing myself enough to be like, all I need to do is just walk in and say, I'm not available, I have a doctor's appointment. Bam, finished. But for some reason, I can't say the same for everyone, but I feel like this is such a Nigerian thing and a Nigerian work culture where we have to over explain and explain and explain and explain. The work culture is quite toxic over there, but sure. I'm not going to say anything too much about that. And it just goes to say, like, we are kind of bending over backwards to prove our worth. We're like, oh, but I did this. Even in little things like explaining, turning down an invitation. You can just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't make it. But me, I'll be like, no, it's because I can't. I mean, to be fair now, a lot of the times if I cancel, it's because of work. But even when it's not work, I'd either say yes or explain the life and destiny of why I can't go. And I'm like, but the people you're explaining to, they don't really care. They just want to like confirm your attendance or not, and then they'll move on. But you are like overcomplicating things. So we're not doing that. We're not over explaining ourselves. We're going to be sure of where we are. I think it is just the point of us trying to prove our value and prove our worth and prove that we belong on the table. But if you're already there, you belong. So there's no need to over explain. I will say there is a part to sell yourself and boast about it, which also come because that's another thing I want to talk about again, learning about the British work culture, which is something for Will. That was a learning curve for me, man. It was a very interesting culture shock, the British work culture, and bragging about your achievements. I did not understand it for one bit. I was like, okay, let's say the task is to clear this room and get all the coffee cups out. The task has been assigned to IG. IG has done the task. If somebody comes in and they're like, okay, there are no coffee cups, it has been cleared, they should know that I've done it, right? No, you have to still be like, well, I've cleared all the coffee cups. I just like, no. That was something that I was like, I don't know if I can get on that. But it cost me quite a lot of things and even trust in my manager as well. So it was something I really had to learn. So it's not the same as me saying over explaining yourself. Like that's it. There's a line between that and like bragging about what you have done. That's something that is completely different. Finally, this one is a bit tricky and I have to think about my words before I go into it, but I want to go into 2026 trying things. So I don't want to wait to feel ready to try things. That is something I am putting behind me in 2025 and going to 26 just head on. Because my motto is going to be, what's the worst that will happen? You say no. Right? So I don't want to wait until something feels absolutely ready before I try it. And I experienced that a lot on this podcast. There were so many things that I wanted to do, so many guests that I wanted to reach out to. And I was like, no, I have to wait till I get a certain level of followers and they see that I'm very, very serious. And then they'll say yes. Two guests, two quite, I'm sounding like I'm bragging now because why not? Let me brag. But two high profile guests that I had wanted to have on the podcast, they both agreed, but I delayed because I was like, I need to wait till. And then by the time I was ready, They were like, oh no, something's come up. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not waiting anymore I'm ready. The worst that will happen is they will say no. And I will move on with my life. I think that's something we need to do. That career path, you're like, oh, I need to wait. This often happens with people. They're like, oh, I need to wait to get to this certain point. I need to wait to get this amount of money. I need to wait for this. I need to wait for that. Don't wait. You don't have time. I mean, you do, but you don't have time. Like, don't have that mentality that you need to wait till you're ready before you do something. You are never going to be ready. You are never, ever, ever, ever going to be ready. You are going to be ready in that moment. I don't know if this is related because my husband always tells me I used to tell stories that are not related, but I'm going to tell the story anyway. So I learn by experience, my experience, not people's experience. Like I don't learn from other people's mistakes. I have to make the mistake to learn. A very good example is navigating TFL. A lot of my knowledge around the underground is because I have gotten lost so many times. And I will not have the knowledge that I have right now if I didn't get lost. I'm going to use this analogy, which is going to be very bad, about saying don't wait till you're ready. Get lost first. It still happens to this day. Like, and me getting lost is not something so bad that I went like really, really far. It would just be me getting on the wrong platform and seeing the train leave and be like, wait. This is not where I'm supposed to be. Why am I here? So as long as you can always pull yourself back out of it, then don't wait till you feel ready or something like that. Actually, that was a very bad example, but I told it anyway. And oh my gosh, there was one day, this is totally off point, but I'm going to tell that story anyway. Is I never have a very good TFL story because there is always one that tops it. And I always feel like, oh, the last one would be like, there's no way this is going to happen to me again. But somehow it does happen. So this one happened when it was like last week. Oh my gosh, my husband's going to find out on this podcast and make fun of me. But it was last week and I needed to get somewhere. I was going to Covent Garden from Victoria Station. And what you need to do is you get on the Victoria line, switch at Green Park. When you get to Green Park, get on the Piccadilly line and it's like 4 stops or 3 stops to Covent Garden. I got on Victoria line, missed my stop, Green Park. And I was like, IJ, you can't be, it's one stop. You cannot be doing this to yourself. You're a grown-ass woman. How are you missing one stop? It's literally the next stop. So I got to the stop after, that's Oxford Circus. Switched again back to Green Park. And I said to myself that if I miss this stop, then there's something really wrong with you. I wasn't distracted or anything. Maybe I was just like zoned out or something. By the time I got back to Green Park, switched to the Piccadilly line, then I got to Covent Garden. I have to say that Covent Garden is one of the most I don't know what to use, but that station is a very interesting station. It has 193 steps, like stairs. That they always encourage you to use the lift. They always say you don't use the stairs unless it's an emergency or a fire or something like that. Somehow, the lift was taking too much time, and I had to go somewhere. I was going to work. I said, "F this, man." I started climbing the stairs because I was thinking, how high could it be? Until I started seeing the line, because at every level they'll be telling you only 173 more to go, only 134 to go, only this. By the time I got to the top, I was like, Lord of Jesus, I can never do this again. That was my cardio for the year. What do you mean? I was like, it makes sense that there are like 4 or 5 lifts just there waiting for people, because they will advise you do not take the stairs. Anyway, that was a random TFL story that I did not need anybody to know, but you know now. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. This is just a few things about like what are the things I am not bringing into 2026. If you have any of those, just put them in the comment section. Make sure you like, share. I already said comment. But subscribe as well. I'd be very happy if you do that. I'd be very glad. I'd be very ecstatic if you subscribe. We have amazing things planned for the podcast this year. Bye.